Have you ever been as crazy as I was? I used to ruin countless old t-shirts of mine just trying to flex and rip them like David Banner. My mother was furious, but to me back then, I was the Hulk. However, behind those exciting shirt-ripping moments of us kids back then was a much grimmer and harsher reality. Did you know that a giant almost turned out red? The insane artistic sacrifice where an actor had to struggle with a real 700-pound bear and bathe in hard liquor, just in exchange for a few minutes of legendary footage. And the never-before-told, behind-the-scenes secrets from borrowing the voices of classic villains to the suffocating copyright battles that gave birth to new superheroes. Today, we will reopen the darkest and strangest behind-the-scenes doors of The Incredible Hulk. 1977. Let's get started! 15. The intellect of a child in a monster's body. Unlike later versions of the Hulk that were often built as uncontrolled destruction machines, the Hulk from the 1977 series possessed a very special personality trait, the naivety of a child. This was not a mindless monster. The filmmakers skillfully embedded moments that revealed the humanity and primitive intelligence of this character. In many episodes, we see the Hulk never attacking vulnerable people. Instead, he has moments of stopping to curiously look at something trying to strike up a friendship, or even attempting to save a baby who fell into a river. Lou Ferrigno's eyes, under the makeup, contained not only anger, but also an immense sadness and a sense of displacement. The Hulk here is like a giant child trying to understand the complex world of humans through the purest instincts. It is this element that created the emotional power of the film. The Hulk does not fight for heroic ideals. He fights to protect what he feels is right, or to protect David Banner, even though these two entities never actually met. The contrast between the rippling muscles capable of flipping an entire truck and the fragile, vulnerable soul of a creature that cannot speak turned the Hulk into a character more tragic and pitiable than frightening. 14. The pioneering film for rip and tear fashion. Surely you cannot forget the classic scene repeated in every episode. David Banner begins to gasp, his eyes bulge, and then rip, his shirt explodes like an overloaded balloon. There is an unintentionally humorous truth that David Banner seems to have a hobby of shopping for the cheapest and most easily torn clothes in television history. He changes shirts more often than a Chippendales dancer, and strangely enough, the reasons for both are almost identical. Every transformation follows a constant motif. David gets angry, his muscles begin to swell, the shirt rips apart at the seams, but by some miracle, his pants always survive, resiliently with just a few fashionable tears. It is as if his clothes were woven from tissues and fragile hopes. To film these scenes, the actual behind the scenes did not use supernatural power, but only razor blades. Producer Kenneth Johnson revealed that the costume department had to choose shirts several sizes smaller than Lou Ferrigno's size, then use razor blades to pre-cut the seams to control the direction of the tear. With just a slight flex from Lou, the fabric would burst in the right places, creating a perfect visual effect without needing actual Hulk strength. And here is the real mystery: Banner is supposed to carry all his belongings in a sad little duffel bag. So where do all these new shirts come from? Did he have a secret Amazon Prime account back then? Or is there a store chain called Clothes for People Who Occasionally Turn into Monsters? These are the important questions that keep fans awake at night. 13. Inspired by Les Miserables.
Neither was I. But I had to find out just what it was that I'd seen. So I started following up anything that was even remotely connected with the Hulk.
It might sound strange to place a muscular green giant next to a French literary masterpiece, but in reality, The Incredible Hulk borrows its plot from Les Miserables far more than from Marvel Comics. In the world of this series, David Banner is the mirror image of Jean Valjean, a kind-hearted man pushed by destiny onto a path of flight, always carrying a terrifying secret, and constantly having to change his name to survive on the fringes of society. If Banner is Valjean, then reporter Jack McGee is the modern-day version of Inspector Javert. Both are tireless pursuers, always appearing like ghosts right at the protagonist's heels. However, the ironic difference lies in their motives. While Javert worships absolute justice, McGee worships sensationalist headlines. McGee's persistent stalking is not for the purpose of law enforcement, but to satisfy the thirst for fame of a newspaperman willing to trade everything to hunt down the monster. And it is this very connection that gives the show more emotional depth than most superhero series of that time. If you ever cried seeing Banner walking to the sound of the piano that wasn't just nostalgia, it was Victor Hugo with better stunt choreography. 12. Hulk almost turned out red. If you are used to the image of the lush green giant, there is a fact that will astonish you. The Hulk almost wore the colour of a ripe tomato. When casting bodybuilder Lou Ferrigno was the most perfect name thanks to the heat from the documentary Pumping Iron. If Bill Bixby brought a sombre, dramatic quality to the role of David Banner, then Lou was the release, a brilliant spark of muscle amidst the gloomy atmosphere of the series. However, a creative conflict erupted right from the design stage. Series developer Kenneth Johnson was extremely serious about the idea of turning the Hulk red. His reasoning sounded quite convincing. Red is the natural colour of blood of congestion, and most importantly, the colour of extreme anger. He even teased Stan Lee saying, "Come on Stan, why green? Are you planning to make him green with envy?" Johnson wanted the Hulk to look more like a mutated biological entity, rather than a character stepping out of colourful pages. Fortunately for us, Stan Lee stood his ground firmly. He understood that the colour green was not just a colour, but had become the legacy and irreplaceable brand identity of this character. Interestingly, it wasn't until 30 years later that the idea of a red Hulk actually appeared in Marvel Comics. 11. The day Mr. Rogers met the Hulk.
And understand that it's okay to be angry, and it's all right to let it out as long as we don't hurt anybody else and as long as we don't hurt ourselves.
Among the most unexpected crossovers in television history, this is perhaps the one we love the most, the day Mr. Rogers visited the set of The Incredible Hulk. This was not an action episode where Mr. Rogers used his cardigan to calm the Green Giant, but a segment of the Mr. Rogers Neighborhood program titled Superheroes, which aired on February the 6th, 1980. Fred Rogers' goal was clear. He wanted to demystify fear for children. He brought Mr. McFeely to the set to show young viewers how a television show is operated, and most importantly, to remind them that the Hulk is not real. Before the transformation took place, Mr. Rogers had a profound conversation with Bill Bixby. There, the real-life David Banner shared very ordinary reflections on how he controlled his anger as a child. A valuable lesson that anger is a primal and normal emotion, as long as we do not turn it into actions that hurt others. Afterward, the behind-the-scenes magic was revealed. Lou Ferrigno personally showed Mr. McFeely and the children the entire transformation process, from applying layers of green paint to his body to the rubber pieces meticulously attached with specialized glue. In true Mr. Rogers humanitarian style, this visit was not just about scrutinizing special effects, but was an emotional education lesson. It proved that no matter how many scenes of destruction or roaring, there, where the core of the Incredible Hulk remained a story about facing the monster inside every person. 10. She-Hulk exists because of a Hulk episode that never happened.
Get off me.
Few would expect the business-minded truth behind the birth of Jennifer Walters' She-Hulk did not appear because of an artistic breakthrough, but because Marvel feared losing the rights entirely to the CBS network. It all started with a rumour leaked from the writing room of the Incredible Hulk series. The story goes that the writers came up with an idea for an episode where David Banner is forced to give a blood transfusion to a female relative who is critically ill, causing her to also turn into a version of the Hulk. When this news reached Marvel, they say turned pale. According to the laws at that time, if CBS broadcasted that character before Marvel could debut her in the comics, the network could claim full ownership of the female Hulk image. Thus, Marvel executed a lightning-fast interception. They rushed to create Jennifer Walters, the lawyer cousin of Bruce Banner. After a last-minute gamma-irradiated blood transfusion on the page, She-Hulk officially became Green Angry and most importantly copyrighted under Marvel's name. The comic Savage She-Hulk #1 was released in 1980 as a checkmate move. Although Bill Bixby's television series ultimately never featured any Green Lady, it was the threat from the network that accidentally sparked the birth of one of the most iconic female heroes in Marvel history. 9. Bill Bixby still doesn't have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Hello? Listen to me. The only crime that you've committed so far has been smuggling.
Can you believe it, Bill? Bixby, a television icon who received multiple Emmy nominations and was the soul that brought emotional depth to the Incredible Hulk, still does not have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame to this day. This is a reality that makes many fans more furious than even the Green Giant. Before transforming into the tormented Dr. David Banner, Bill Bixby had an illustrious career with work such as My Favourite Martian, The Courtship of Eddie's Father, and The Magician. He didn't just act in films, he infused them with a rare humanity and sensitivity. While fictional animated characters even have their names on that famous sidewalk, the man who spent his whole life dedicated to art has been inexplicably forgotten. The harsh truth is that to have a star, one must spend more than $75,000 just to apply and maintain it. Currently, a major campaign from the fan community is being strongly pushed to bring him the honour he deserves. If a talented and virtuous actor like Bill Bixby does not deserve a spot on the Walk of Fame, then perhaps we truly should let the Hulk smash that entire outdated system and start over from scratch. 8. The Hulk has a family and a hometown.
David, you're alive!
We often remember David Banner as a lonely ghost, a man trudging along nameless highways with a canvas bag moving from town to town like a cursed soul. But in reality, the Green Giant also has a hometown, a loving sister, and a father who is still alive, though he is somewhat unpleasant. In the haunting Season 3 episode titled Homecoming, the veil over Banner's past is finally lifted. He comes from Trevon, Colorado, from a family with an academic tradition. His sister Helen is also a scientist, just as brilliant as her brother. However, the reunion is not rosy at all when his father, played by John Marley, appears cold and harsh. He shows no joy in seeing his son, who carries gamma-irradiated blood, return. He even reopens generational trauma by mentioning Banner's deceased mother. In a silent moment that suffocates the viewers' hearts, Banner utters the real reason he risked coming back despite being pursued. "I couldn't spend another Thanksgiving alone. That sentence turns the fierce monster back into a son, a brother, a boy who once had a normal home before the tragedy struck. Of course, that peace was only a brief pit stop. By the end of the episode, the image of David Banner standing by the roadside hitchhiking as the piano melody of The Lonely Man plays became an immortal symbol. He continues his journey of flight, carrying homesickness into his eternal solitude. 7. The Hulk in the pilot episode was not always Lou Ferrigno.
Now there's Lou Ferrigno getting in the makeup chair.
He is a very muscular man.
Yes, he is. Now, here's Norman, the makeup person.
Few people would suspect that the first transformation scene was not played by Lou, but by Richard Kiel, the giant actor famous for his role as the steel-toothed assassin, Jaws in the James Bond film series. Although Lou Ferrigno is the name cemented with this role in the pilot episode, the Green Giant was actually another acquaintance from the cinematic universe. Standing at 2.18 metres, 7 feet 2 inches, Richard Kiel possessed an extremely massive physique. However, the producers felt he looked a bit too slender compared to the expectations for a muscular monster. Not to mention, Richard Kiel was severely allergic to the green contact lenses, which made his eyes so painful he was brought to tears. That horrific experience ended quickly, and Lou Ferrigno was brought in as a replacement to provide a bulkier version of the Hulk. The interesting thing is that the crew did not waste all the old footage. One shot of Richard Kiel still remained in the official broadcast. Therefore, if you are watching the film and suddenly see the Hulk grow nearly 30 centimetres taller and look a bit confused with strange eyes, then congratulations, you are not seeing things. That is the rare moment when the James Bond assassin borrowed the Hulk's body to appear on screen. 6. The creator almost refused to do the show. It sounds hard to believe, but without a bit of negotiation regarding the content, this movie might never have existed. Kenneth Johnson, the genius mind behind the series, initially had absolutely no interest in making a show about a green monster. He was the one behind the success of the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman science fiction works that always placed humanity and character psychology at the centre. When Marvel proposed that he adapt the Hulk, Johnson's first reaction was almost a definitive wave of the hand, a giant green monster. No thanks. In his eyes, at the time, the idea seemed too comic bookish and lacked the depth necessary to retain a television audience for the long term. However, instead of giving up, he began to search for a different approach, turning the Hulk into a tragedy. He decided to make David Banner a man haunted by the pain of loss, guilt, and uncontrollable fits of rage. Banner was not a superhero going out to save the world, but a cursed wanderer. A poor soul always having to flee from the monster within himself. 5. The Hulk almost never punched anyone. Do you think an angry green monster would constantly throw punches? No. Throughout the entire series, the Hulk rarely punched anyone. Instead, he would lift people up, throw logs, bend guns, or flip cars. The reason behind this restraint was both artistic and a way to sidestep the rules. Producer Kenneth Johnson did not want to build the Hulk as a thug or an aggressive street fighter. More importantly, television networks at that time had extremely strict regulations regarding violence. A punch to the face was considered too brutal for young audiences, but strangely enough, picking a man up and throwing him 20 feet into a pile of cardboard boxes was considered cheap and acceptable. Logically speaking, this change was also quite reasonable. With the terrifying strength of Lou Ferrigno, a real punch from the Hulk would not just knock an enemy unconscious, it would probably literally send the victim flying into next week. And therefore, throwing and pushing became a unique trademark, creating a fighting style that showcased muscular strength while keeping the film from turning into a bloody battlefield. 4. The Nightmare, named Green and Hard Liquor.
Now the next step is the green makeup.
Oh my, yes.
Now this goes all over his face and all over his body. And as you can see, the makeup is shiny.
If you think Lou Ferrigno possessing massive muscles was the hardest part of becoming the Hulk, then prepare yourself for the truth behind that green skin. Since this was the Stone Age of special effects, the crew had to use a type of industrial food colouring mixed with grease paint to cover Lou's body. As a result, Lou Ferrigno had to stand still for 3 to 4 hours every day for experts to paint layer after layer onto him. But the real nightmare only began when the cameras turned off. This paint clung so tightly that ordinary soap was completely useless. To clean it off, Lou had to endure a grueling process. He was wiped down with high concentration rubbing alcohol and even milk to soothe his skin. Lou once shared that after each filming day he usually returned home with his skin still tinted green, making him look like someone with severe liver disease or someone who had just stepped out of a bathtub full of printer ink. This inconvenience even extended to personal items. Lou was not allowed to sit on any chair without a towel lining because he would leave a permanent green streak on it. Many hotels even refused to rent rooms to the film crew for fear that Lou would ruin all the bedsheets and towels. It was this silent and alcohol-scented sacrifice that created the most authentic Hulkan image that no polished CGI afterward could ever bring such a flesh and blood feeling to. 3. Hulk fought a real bear in the pilot episode. Do you remember the crazy footage where the Hulk fiercely wrestles with a giant bear in the middle of a rushing river? In a decision that today could only be described with the phrase, "It sounded like a good idea," at the time the producers had the Hulk fight a real bear weighing over 300 kilograms in the episode A Death in the Family. This scene was filmed over 2 long days right in the middle of a river because apparently wrestling a bear wasn't challenging enough without slippery rocks and freezing water. Although the bear was trained muzzled and even sedated, it remained a clawed wild animal that couldn't care less about standing at the right camera angle or maintaining continuity. During filming, the bear reportedly accidentally knocked off Lou Ferrigno's wig and began to lick his face enthusiastically. Just imagine you are covered in toxic green paint, nearly blind from contact lenses, stone deaf due to the makeup standing waist deep in an icy river. And now you have to withstand a violent spa treatment from a creature weighing nearly as much as a car. 2. An international box office goldmine. Even though it was a television series, The Incredible Hulk had an extremely clever business strategy that filmmakers at the time called efficient milking. The pilot episode and the episode A Death in the Family were of such high quality that they were re-edited into complete feature films to be released in cinemas across Europe, Canada, and even some Asian countries. As a result, without spending extra production costs, the film still brought in millions of dollars in box office revenue from international markets. An extremely rare feat for a product originally intended for the small screen. In the UK, the film version of the pilot was so successful that it made the list of the highest grossing films of the year, proving that audiences were willing to pay for a theatre ticket just to see Lou Ferrigno's Green Giant on a larger screen. It didn't stop there. Hulk fever created a merchandise empire that brought in massive profits for Marvel and Universal. From hard plastic Hulk dolls and dress-up toy sets to lunch boxes printed with the images of Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno, everything became a must-have item for every child of that era. 1. The Hulk was actually portrayed by 3 people. As I mentioned before, the Hulk consisted of 2 forms of the character David Banner, played by Bill Bixby, and the Hulk, played by Lou. But what about the Hulk's sound? Even though the Hulk never uttered lengthy lines of dialogue, the grunts and roars full of fury were the soul of the action scenes. During the first 2 seasons, all of those sounds were performed by actor Ted Cassidy. If that name sounds familiar, he was the one who played Lurch the Butler in the classic series The Addams Family. Not only did he roar, but Cassidy was also the owner of the deep, captivating narration in the opening of each episode that we often hear. Unfortunately, tragedy struck when Ted Cassidy passed away during the production of the 2nd season. The crew decided to keep his immortal opening narration as a tribute, but the task of growling for the Hulk had to be handed over to someone new, Charles Napier. He was a veteran actor whom you might later recognise in masterpieces like The Silence of the Lambs or Rambo: First Blood Part 2. Thus, behind Lou Ferrigno's green paint was actually a fascinating acoustic succession, making the Hulk a character moulded from the talents of 3 different artists. So what about you? Which moment from The Incredible Hulk 1977 is the one you remember most? Leave a comment, and if you want to continue unlocking other deleted scenes from Hollywood's golden age, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. You will be surprised by what Hollywood has kept hidden from you for decades.